every year, this is year number 7, Ben does a survey of a group of agents, NFL agents. They are granted anonymity for the purposes of answering questions on this survey about the league, about our team. It's been one of the best things to read for the last several years, and Ben put it out yesterday. And there are a couple of things in here, and we'll talk about it a little bit more when he's on the show tomorrow. This is on Ben's Substack now. You can link to that at Ben Standig on X. But in talking about which franchise has its act together, so it's basically identifying the best franchises in the NFL. The Eagles got, out of the 24 agents that were asked about it, they got 7 votes. The Ravens were next, the Vikings after that. But then tied for 4th among votes, Washington. Which franchise has its act together? Washington. And here's what one agent said about Washington. Washington is the most stable organization from top to bottom. Wow. What universe am I living in? We're 2 years removed from the bottom of the barrel, like the worst of the worst. And in 2 years, there's an agent out there that says Washington is the most stable organization from top to bottom. Congratulations to, when you start hearing this from agents, you start hearing this from people around the league, and Washington's, after the Eagles, Ravens, Vikings, they're among the Bills, Chiefs, and Lions. By the way, the Lions, too, on that list in terms of franchises having their act together. Pretty impressive. That is for sure. What a change. If you're wondering, the most unstable franchise in the league, the Bengals, followed by the Cowboys. And Washington was always at the top of that most unstable heading. And then there were a lot of questions about quarterbacks and Jaden Daniels in particular, but we'll save some of it for tomorrow. And, you got to go read the rest of it on your own. But Ben asked these 24 agents, which quarterback do you believe will define the NFL's next decade? Jaden Daniels, number 1, got 8.5 of the 24 votes. Mahomes was 2, and then Allen and Burrow were way down the list. A couple of, or the quote on Jaden from an agent on the condition of anonymity. Jaden Daniels has it all. Very smart, gifted athletically, handles himself well, a hard worker who doesn't take himself too seriously. Teammates love him. Some knock the build, the physical build, but he's elusive. To come in as a rookie and turn around that franchise is enormous. There you go on Jaden Daniels. There's a lot of other really good stuff in here on Jaden and quarterbacks in general. Thoughts on why Shedeur Sanders, from the agent's perspective, slipped and what the real story was behind that. Some of the early thoughts on a quarterback like Arch Manning for next year. But yeah, some good stuff from Ben's 7th annual agent survey. He does a really good job with that. All right, before you hear some of what Jaden said yesterday, because Wednesday is coach and quarterback day, today is coordinator day, and then tomorrow we'll hear from the coach one last time. I wanted to read to you something that Zach Ertz said about Jaden Daniels. Kind of, a veteran recognizing what is important, beyond just the on-the-field ability. Zach Ertz said yesterday, quote, "The humility has been the surprising thing. You don't get drafted number 2 without the physical traits, right? He's fast. He can make all the throws, all that. But it's his ability to be one of the guys that sets him apart. I don't throw this name around lightly, but he's a lot like Andrew Luck in that way." Ertz, of course, played at Stanford with Andrew Luck. And he says, quote, "At Stanford, it was never about Andrew. Here, it's never about Jaden. They're the best player on the team, but they just want to be one of the guys. That's rare. I'm telling you, that's rare. That from Zach Ertz. Obviously, the connection that Jaden and Zach Ertz have made has been exceptionally important to what the offense is. Ertz will be a big, big part of what they do offensively this year. All right. Yesterday, Jaden was asked a few things about sort of year two, what the offense is capable of. Let's play number one, Max, where he talks about what makes him different in year two.
I would probably just say a year under my belt to know what I'm getting myself into with a week one. Last year I didn't know what I was getting myself into. So first game, didn't know what to expect, but now you just go out there, you have a routine, preparation, and consistent. So it's kind of what's different.
Yeah, I mean, he knows what to expect from, the league going into the opener. Last year he didn't. And remember, he was not the issue in their blowout loss to Tampa in that game. The defense couldn't get off the field. Baker Mayfield threw 4 touchdowns. And, Godwin and Mike Evans, and they all had big days against Washington's secondary. But remember, the one thing in watching that game, 2 things actually. One is Jaden, took off too early and then didn't keep his eyes down the field to make throws. And that was something that they had talked about, leading into the opener, that they wanted to see more of that. And we didn't see that in the opener. So it was like, is he going to learn? The coaches have already been talking about that. Well, it didn't take long for him to learn how to keep his eyes down the field as he escaped the pocket. The other thing that I remember is just the insanity of how much they ran him in that game when the game was over, down by the goal line. Remember, down by the goal line, they were running zone reads and he was keeping it, down 37-14. I was like, what are we doing here in his first game, exposing him to basically, he ran 16 times for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns, but about 6 of those carries were with the game completely decided. And I thought, wow, they obviously didn't think about it. And remember, Cliff did say that following week, got caught up in it. We wanted to score all of this, probably shouldn't have, exposed them as much as we did. They got away with it in that opener, but he had 16 carries in that game for 88 yards. And it really was, a week one game, but it was, it left some questions after that first game, not about his athleticism, not about his playmaking ability, but some of the other things, including some of the hits he took. Of course, they came back week 2 against the Giants and never punted in the game. There were no turnovers and no punts in that second game against the Giants. All they did was have the ball 7 times and kick 7 field goals. That was the problem, of course, in that game. 7 field goals. But thank you, Austin Seibert, for that game, not the Dallas game later on in the season. This was Jaden yesterday talking about what the 2025 version of the offense is capable of.
I guess we're going to find out on Sunday. I don't really have an answer. I just hope not hope, but go out there and execute at a high standard. That's the standard that we keep, and that's the standard that we uphold each and every day, especially another year in the system. We know it. We're allowed to go out there and play fast and free.
I do kind of like the fact that the answers aren't, long. They're not overly compelling. But in his own way, he is shrewd. He's not going to talk about what they're going to be in year 2. We'll find out. And by the way, having the ability to understand that sometimes you think you're something and the league tends to trick you. It isn't always what you think it is. This was one more Jaden on where he thinks the team has grown the most.
Yeah, I think it just starts with the veteran leadership. We added more veteran experience, and we got guys last year that were with DQ, and we kind of know the standard and how we want to play. And you could tell that people are bought in. Everybody's showing up, working hard, and we all love one another. One each other in the locker room. We take care of one another on the practice field, but we know at the end of the day we got to push each other to get better.
Jaden Daniels talking about some of that veteran leadership that was brought in the form of Laramie Tunsil and Debo Samuel for sure. Some veteran presence defensively as well. You know, guys like Wise and Kinlaw and Goldman, and Will Harris, a Marshawn Lattimore late last season. This team is certainly the oldest team in the league by average age, but again, we've talked about this. The Josh Johnsons, the Tress Ways, they kind of skew that a bit higher. By the way, Kendrick Bourne did not sign with the team. That hasn't happened yet. Apparently, he's going to wait a week to sort of watch week one here and figure it out. I guess most people believe it is between the 49ers and the Skins. So the first injury report came out yesterday. Zach Ertz didn't practice. There were a lot of Wednesdays last year. He took a rest day, and that's how it was described, a rest day. Dorrance Armstrong, Noah Brown, and Jonathan Jones all limited. Certainly the Noah Brown is worth keeping a close eye on. Matt Gay was ill, but he was a full participant. And then Marcus Mariota, there was some question about whether or not he would be the backup quarterback Sunday. I guess there's still time for this to change, but he was a full participant yesterday with that Achilles tendonitis. Having Marcus Mariota back, I thought was a big deal. You know, one of the things at the end of the season last year, I think number one on my list was for them to focus on continuing what they had started to do in the changing of the culture. And that meant bringing back Wagner, Ertz, and even Mariota. There were other things. Defense had to get better. They had to get better in the trenches. They had to figure out corner with Lattimore. Was he, just not healthy enough and came in too late, or was there more of a concern there? And then they needed to upgrade, in the trenches offensively, especially at tackle. Wanted another, running back and wide receiver. And certainly from a running back standpoint, they may have gotten it in the form of a 7th-round picker. Time will tell. Time will tell. And then wanted a new kicker. Had to solve the kicker problem. We'll see what Matt Gay is, but certainly they believe at $4.5 million guaranteed that he is an upgrade over what they had last year. All right, Denton